Pantheon is the #1 counter to Teemo, followed by Swain. Blitz does really well versus Teemo in general, not as a top lane matchup. Teemo's naturally weak versus casters, since he does well versus fighters who rely on auto attacks which he can blind. As you can see, all of Teemo's counters are barely affected by his blind, but also make it very dangerous for Teemo to walk up for his auto attacks, which are only 500 range. This is the #1 issue with Pantheon. His abilities outrange Teemo's, and his passive blocks auto attacks, which prevents Teemo's poison from being applied, which makes it very difficult to trade with Thunderlords or stack Fervor. However, Teemo's Q outranges Pantheon's, so we need to make use of Teemo's Q in lane and maximize our lane phase around that. The first thing we need to do is take our Deathfire Touch page. This adds 20% damage to our Q at level 1. Because Deathfire Touch has almost no base damage but good AP scaling, I choose to take flat ability power glyphs and quints because this gives us the strongest level 1 through 5. Magic Pen wouldn't pay off until after that. I use attack speed marks to help control the wave and scale nicely as well. With this setup, you can see our Q will do 33% more damage than Pantheon's Q. However, Pantheon's Q has half the mana cost and half the cooldown. If we only trade Q for Q, we will win easily. The trick is to make sure we don't get hit by Pantheon's Q when ours is off cooldown. This means we just need to back off for 4 seconds. As soon as our Q is back up, we should look to trade Q for Q again. Taking a look at the two masteries, we see our Deathfire Touch is better at level 1 and 2, considering it has no cooldown. It even outdamages Thunderlords at level 1. Pantheon's Burst becomes dangerous level 3 and up, however by then we'll have him so low that we can kill him with a Q and Ignite if he ever does jump on us. Here's a summary of my setup. I highly recommend using the exact same setup because it's fully optimized for beating Pantheon in lane. One thing to notice is I only put 3 points into Q and then start maxing E. This is because Pantheon will usually start building a Maw for magic resist, and will need the sustained damage of some points in E, and I find the level 3 Q enough damage to keep him low. Let's review starting items against Pantheon. We need to trade damage of Q, not just take a beating and pay for pots to sustain the damage. Our main concern is mana. Doran's Ring offers the best mana option, giving us 80 mana per minute, while also offering the best damage for our Q. Corrupting Potion gives us more health and mana and refill, so we save money. However, we'll not have as much damage in lane because we cannot always proc the bleed, so it's a little bit weaker, but our second best option. Dark Seal doesn't offer enough mana to beat Pantheon. Doran's Shield regenerates a lot of health and refunds 20 health every time we get speared, and Cloth Armor is probably the worst start because 8% damage reduction early only blocks 7 damage per spear while giving us no damage to trade back, and we end up wasting money trying to survive. For the build, we will start with flat AP to feed our Q and Deathfire Touch, and a Ruby Crystal for defense to turn into Liandry's. Once we have Liandry's, we need sustained DPS, which makes Nashor's the best item. The Magic Pen and AP buff Nashor's on-hit damage, while also giving 50% attack speed, twice as much as the Blade of the Rune King. Because we're building AP, Pantheon will get a Maw, and other champions will likely also get magic resist. So I take a Blade of the Rune King, which gives me lots of physical damage, with Sustain. We now have 2% HP items, which allows us to do super fast Barons and Dragons. For armor, I take Ninja Tabby, and for MR, I take Banshees. Now let's look at a recent replay of mine against Pantheon. As you can see, I'm scrolling to my Pantheon item set. I need to solve the mana issues of spamming Q, so I need to start Doran's Ring. This regens me 130 mana per minute, on top of the 4 mana per minion kill. As soon as I get to lane, I need to start chunking him, so he's too low to jump me at level 2 or 3. Because he doesn't have his shield up yet, I get in some free damage of auto attacks. I also need to make sure he doesn't hit 2 before me, because then he can kill me. I constantly auto the wave, and when I get a chance, I auto him too. I'm not doing a good job backing off when my Q is on cooldown, and I get hit by spears, which shouldn't happen. I'm already out of mana, so I need to make sure I last hit properly to get some mana back. I'll save mana for when I hit level 3 and get a second point in my Q so I get more damage for my mana.
Armed and ready.
So, as we can see, he already drank all his potion, and he's down to 200 health. He is low enough that I can kill him with a Q and Ignite now. The gank helped, but I wouldn't have needed it. As soon as I got mana for another Q, I would have gone for the kill with Ignite either way. I have enough gold for a blasting wand, but I would rather have the safety of a ruby crystal and an amp tome. This sums up the rest of the lane pretty much, just spamming Q for Q and backing off while it's on cooldown.
That's gotta sting. Reporting in. Two, three, four. Armed and ready. Yes, sir. Hut, 2, 3, 4.
See, with just 3 Qs, he's already below 50% health.
Sting. Swiftly.
Enemy has been slain.
Armed and ready. Swiftly. I'll scout ahead.
And I forgot about Deathfire Touch bleeding and got turret aggro.
Yes, sir. Armed and ready.
An enemy has been slain.
Reporting in.
And just making sure he's not 6 to Skyfall on my furry little head.
Gotta sting.
I go with Blasting Wand and Boots because Haunting Guys doesn't give us much damage as raw AP early game.
Swiftly. Hut, 2, 3, 4.
been slain.
So now that Pantheon has Hex Drinker, he would likely win an all-in. I need to play carefully and poke him a bit, ideally popping his Hex Drinker before being able to go for a kill again.
I'll scout ahead.
I'm gonna try to bait him by pretending I left myself open to a combo. It's sad how many times I've fallen for this trick myself. Too greedy. Honestly, if it's too good to be true, it's usually a bait.
Armed and ready.
I'm hoping he comes to ward the river.
That's gotta sting.
Has been slain.
Swiftly. I'll scout ahead. Hut, 2, 3, 4. That's gotta sting.
Killing spree. Shut down.
2, 3, 4. Armed and ready.
And that's pretty much it. Spam Q at Pantheon with the right runes and masteries, and make sure you don't get hit by his Q while yours is on cooldown too much.